Hello, everyone. Um, I meant to do this about 2 weeks ago, and even then, about a week before that. Um, in keeping that I'm posting this as a record of my local perspective here on the U.S Mexican border of California, um, Mexico held back on a lockdown for over a month, and within the past 2 weeks, so about 2 weeks ago, um, so four, 4 weeks ago, Mexicali hospitals denied all U.S. citizens living there, uh, which meant that they were forced to cross the border to the U.S. side, which overwhelmed the two community hospitals in Imperial County. The Imperial County and those hospitals basically had to shut down because they were just overwhelmed from the influx. Imperial County has around 180,000 people. So, yeah, and Mexicali is about 900,000. Um, Several U.S. citizens living there. It's overwhelmed us. So right now Mexico is on lockdown. The In response to the flood of patients, they were diverted to San Diego hospitals, so 100 miles away over the mountains. They've been sending the critical patients over by helicopter. Um, and the helicopters have been flying all day long. Military staff have now come set up a field hospital at a local community college, which is located away from population centers. And 60 miles north of here in Thermal, the National Guard is helping out a retirement community that was overwhelmed, and just in time for an encephilitis outbreak amongst mosquitos, which has since spread to southern Arizona. On a personal aside, my mom had a serious leg injury, and I ended up having to take her to the local hospitals. So I took her to the El Centro Hospital. They had a COVID tent set up outside, and I dropped her off, picked her up a couple hours later. And I did not step foot inside of the hospital at all. So it's very nerve-wracking, and yeah. And since then, I've been taking her to the San Diego hospitals regularly. It's been very stressful, and we even keep going to the stores over there too. But yet we're not getting sick, and we're all blood type A and susceptible. But yeah, we're managing to stay healthy. The country is starting to open up. As it stands, yeah, there are about 3 or more armed protests in state capitals, where men with weapons stood before or entered the Capitol building, and just to protest the lockdown. They would say like, "Hey, open up. We need jobs. We need haircuts. We're tired of we want to eat out." As it stands, Memorial Day weekend, the U.S. had 100,000 deaths from coronavirus, and so it's been a couple weeks later. The COVID-19 cases are spiking all over the place, and especially in states like Florida. As for testing, the latest is that the best tests take around 45 minutes. They are still not widespread. It seems around 26% of the population is still in favor of reopening, and half of the Twitter followers pushing for this are fake. 63% of the population wants the country to remain under lockdown and to reopen with medical advice. And that was true 4 weeks ago. It's still true today. It's the numbers, they have not shifted. Elon Musk, openly defied closing down his factories and launched a rocket into space. So, which was wonderful, great distraction. But that same week, in Minneapolis, George Floyd was killed by police, and things have changed dramatically. There are, as of now, so this is about a week after the initial death, there are protests in all 50 states. I myself attended a I Can't Breathe protest this past Monday, um, and that was even after watching the violent, clearing of Lafayette Park in Washington D.C. Uh, there were rumors in my town, which we're 100 miles east of San Diego, that there were agitators in town, but they were just rumors. And but there's enough fear and concern that many businesses basically closed down that day or early and started boarding up. That includes all the major stores. We have a Target, Lowe's, Walmart, um, Costco, and uh, Rite Aid, Walgreens. The they basic So all those stores basically closed down or closed down early, and even the case like Walmart, they barricaded. Um, but Vaughn's stayed open, and when you like, it was kind of interesting because walking, when you go down the main street of El Centro, um, we are we're just like we basically always suffer economic blight. So there's a number of businesses that are just closed or empty or derelict, or just places that look like abandoned and kind of been chronically abandoned, or not used regularly. Um, so it's kind of interesting just how to see, like, okay, who is following the news and who had the resources to board up their business. So because maybe half to less than half of the businesses boarded up. Um, and the protest started at the courthouse. Later on, it moved down. They marched down the street towards a major intersection, and I took photos of the businesses, large windows, large spaces, no graffiti, no vandalism at all. The and it was kind of interesting because for the I Can't Breathe protest here in El Centro, I knew the organizers, and I was personally motivated to, frankly, from just watching the news, I did not want to see anything bad happen in my community, and I wanted to make sure that the people had the chance to express themselves and to do so peacefully and to know that they were safe. So even after watching the news and seeing everything going on, I went down with just my T-shirt, my Kung Fu fan, uh, and walked around. Wore a mask, wore eye protection. Asked everybody there to maintain 6 feet apart, social distance. Um, and when everybody came in, I greeted them, thanked them for coming, told them social distance, 6 feet apart, where they could find water bottles, let the elderly people sit in the shade, and when the police showed up, thanked them for coming, thanked them for participating. I thanked them for protecting us, and the and that includes the cops who are on the other side of the building, in riot gear, ready for anything to happen, and even the crews who are working the camera drones, who are over in the police headquarters. So uh, the and it was interesting because like 6 p.m. it's 95 degrees, the sun was still out, and I basically spent like an hour walking around, shouting instructions all day for that hour, and yeah, I was pretty worn out at the end of the day. Um, so it's been a wild week. And as far as myself, I had my temperature taken the next day. I've been drinking echinacea tea with honey, chamomile tea with honey, mint tea with honey every day. Killed any germs in my respiratory tract, and so far I'm healthy and good. The But it is interesting what is happening in the country, um, and how, like, what is the response? Like, how are people handling things? There's a lot of fear going on in the country, and even in my little neck of the woods, rural population, small population. Um, it, it's the fear was so strong that everyone here reacted as if what was happening in the major cities would happen here. Um, and that includes with the threat of the pandemic. So, as it stands, in Imperial County has not been lifted from restrictions because our numbers keep going up. And frankly, I think that's just because of lack of science knowledge or science literacy, I guess you could say. The people are just not aware of being able to follow guidelines of cleanliness. I think is the way to approach it. There's a significant part of the population here that was basically flaunting guidelines and instructions. Even myself, going out and being social with some friends, I would still wear a mask. And I would also tell everybody, hey, I'm regularly going to hospitals. I'm regularly going to San Diego, a major city. I'm regularly going to the stores there. I'm a person who potentially can be a vector, can spread the disease. That's why I'm wearing the mask. That's why I'm taking these other precautions about just maintaining my health and killing any germs that could potentially be that residing in me. And see, I go play Dungeons and Dragons at a friend's house. Her parents came down with COVID-19. And one friend I know, he's gotten over COVID-19, but a friend of a friend has died of COVID-19. So it's interesting and sad just what's happening. The challenges that we're all facing, and what else can I say? So what is the perspective? What is happening where I live, and how are people reacting to things? The news is still dominated by the pandemic, and in the news as well is because Imperial County is one of the counties in California that is not, the numbers are not going down, so the restrictions are being maintained. And in a press release, it was stated, like, okay, we're going to have to make do with what you have. And locally, there's a petition going to the state government saying, we need PPE, we need resources. And frankly, that could be the big reason why things have been an issue for us from the beginning. We're a poor community, we're a rural community, we are somewhat isolated from the major population centers. We're also familiar with living on the border and with communicable diseases, but it's still, when you have a scientifically illiterate population, they have trouble understanding and maintaining cleanliness abilities. So, and as a result, you have overreaction, overcorrection, or So it's interesting. The amount of people laid off, not working, has allowed the I Can't Breathe, Black Lives Matter protests to definitely swell. So that's a whole other topic to discuss. But it's just very interesting what's happening in the world and with the pandemic. So, yeah. What other numbers and information can I give you guys? Anyways, yeah, that's about it. So, thank you, and yeah, hope everybody's staying healthy.